Part 1. The Proto-Renaissance. Northern Italy in the Middle Ages was a fractured land full of cities, republics, and small principalities that constantly fought each other for land. Trade, banking, and skilled artisanship made these cities rich. To the north of Italy stood the Holy Roman Empire. It claimed control over the region, but the Alps and different languages made imposing its authority difficult. To the south lay the Papal States, which the Pope ruled directly. The cities of northern Italy chose sides, becoming the Guelphs, supporting the Pope, and the Ghibellines, supporting the Emperor. Genoa and Venice stood among the strongest cities. These two merchant republics competed for sea trade across the Mediterranean and the Black Sea. They traded with Arab merchants in the east and resold luxurious goods like silk, spices, sugar, medicine, perfumes, dyes, jewels, cotton, and cloth across Europe, earning huge profits. Italian traders also moved wool cloth from England and Flanders to other markets. A form of early capitalism emerged as merchants reinvested money to earn more, while loans, partnerships, insurance, and bookkeeping managed these finances. Florence rose as another key city. It became Europe's main banking center, with the gold Florentine florin becoming an important international currency. Banking families like the Bardi and Peruzzi lent money to traders and rulers. In politics, Florence chose the Guelph side. After a Guelph victory at Capodino in 1289, the Guelphs in Florence split. The Black Guelphs backed the Pope, while the White Guelphs resisted his control. One of the veterans of Capodino and member of the White Guelphs was Dante Alighieri, who entered city politics after the war. In 1301, the rival Black Guelphs seized control of the city and forced Dante and others into exile. Dante never returned to Florence. He traveled across Italy and wrote his greatest work, the Divine Comedy. In this poem, Dante describes the journey he takes through hell, purgatory, and heaven. He includes people from his own time, from history, and from Christian mythology to explain ideas about right and wrong, justice, and kindness. Dante finished the book in 1321, the year he died in Ravenna. Many millions of Europeans were given the opportunity to retrace Dante's steps in the afterlife, as the 14th century was a time of great upheaval. The Great Famine struck the continent in the 1310s, and in 1337, England and France began the 100 Years' War. The war drained money and caused major banks like the Bardi and Peruzzi to fail. In the late 1340s, Italian ships from the Black Sea brought dress and fleas that carried the Black Death. The disease killed up to 1/3 of Europe's population. With fewer workers, labor became more valuable, and peasants gained better food, clothing, and opportunities. Dante's work inspired others. Giovanni Boccaccio wrote the Decameron, a collection of stories told by young people hiding from the plague in the Florentine countryside. The stories focus on love, cleverness, and real life. Church leaders disliked the book as it mocked religious hypocrisy, but many readers loved its fresh and open spirit. While Giovanni Boccaccio wrote the Decameron, his close friend Francis Petrarch traveled across Italy. Petrarch's father pushed him to study law, but Petrarch loved old Latin books instead. He read Roman writers like Virgil, Cicero, and Seneca. He believed their words taught wisdom and good character. Petrarch scoured libraries and monasteries all over Italy, looking for old books from ancient Greece and Rome. He copied them, saved them, and urged others to protect them. After reading all these works, Petrarch concluded that since the time of the fall of Rome, humanity was in a dark age, and that a rebirth, or a renaissance, was imminent, especially if writers like Dante showed the way forward. Petrarch argued that learning should include more than religion. He promoted the study of history, literature, and poetry. People later called this approach humanism. Renaissance humanists believed people should go back to their sources, ad fontes. Old Greek and Roman ideas could improve Christian faith and daily life. By reading and translating Latin and Greek texts, humanists could gain new insights and perspectives about human dignity, truth, and beauty. After Petrarch, others built on his ideas. Boccaccio supported Greek studies and introduced Homer to Europe. Coluccio Salutati and Leonardo Bruni linked humanism to politics in Florence. They believed educated citizens should serve the public, a belief known as civic humanism. Many humanists worked as officials, teachers, and diplomats while continuing their studies. During this time, the most popular style of art and architecture in Europe was called Gothic. Starting in the 12th century, builders started adding huge stained glass windows in churches, which glowed with rich colors under sunlight. Builders also invented pointed arches, which were more flexible and stronger than the round ones of the previous Romanesque style. To the people used to dark Romanesque churches, these cathedrals felt like a vision of heaven brought to earth. Artists also changed their style. Whereas Romanesque sculpture looked stiff and solid, Gothic sculpture showed motion, feelings, and realism. Painters also showed stronger emotions and better body shapes. Most artists copied old designs instead of drawing from real life, though a few artists did try real observation. One example is an elephant drawn by Matthew of Paris in 1255. France led the Gothic style across Europe, but Italy followed a different path and looked east to the Byzantine Empire. Italian churches kept using formal mosaics with a stiff style. This choice slowed change, but it also meant that Italian artists were better at showing light, shadow, and depth than other Gothic artists. In 1267, Giotto di Bondone was born in Florence. Giotto imagined stories as if they were happening in real life. He thought about how people would stand, move, and react in his art. From 1302 to 1305, he painted a small church in Padua with stories of Mary and Jesus. Giotto used shading, depth, and perspective to make flat images look three-dimensional. No one had done this so successfully in about 1,000 years, beginning a revival in art that would shape Europe forever. In the late 1300s, a new dynasty began to gain power in Florence. In 1397, Giovanni de Medici started the Medici Bank, handling money for the Pope. Banking was risky business, but Giovanni stayed careful, avoided public fights, and became very rich as a result. He did not rule the city, but his money gave him quiet influence. Giovanni's son Cosimo received a broad education. He loved books, history, and ideas from ancient Greece and Rome. Many merchants focused only on profit, but Cosimo believed money should help the whole community. After Giovanni died in 1429, Cosimo became one of the richest men in Florence and entered politics. Florence called itself a republic. Trade guild members could vote and hold office, and many people joined these guilds. The city changed leaders often and chose them by a lot. This system protected people's liberties, but caused trouble during hard times. One family, the Albizzi, controlled the government. Their leader, Ronaldo degli Albizzi, pushed for war and strict rule. Cosimo supported peace and backed poor workers. After a failed war against Lucca, Ronaldo blamed Cosimo. In 1433, the government sent Cosimo into exile, but Florence struggled without his bank support. The year after, Cosimo's allies won some elections and brought him back to power. Cosimo proceeded to rule through law, not force. He paid high taxes, protected the poor, allowed open criticism, and respected opposition. When he died in 1464, Florence stood strong as a center of art, learning, and new ideas. Despite the innovations of Giotto di Bondone, people in Florence ranked artists and artisans low in society. Most citizens saw them as skilled craftsmen, not deep thinkers or creators. Artists painted flags, made furniture, built tools, and followed strict rules set by powerful guild leaders. They had little freedom or respect. This view began to change with humanist ideas and Cosimo's support, especially in building design. In 1401, Florence held a contest to create new bronze doors for its baptistry. A young artist, Lorenzo de Medici, won. He spent more than 20 years making the north doors, with help from others like Donatello. The doors show scenes from the life of Jesus Christ. Later, the city asked Medici to make a second set for the east side. These doors tell stories from the Old Testament and show people, animals, and plants in rich detail. People praise them as the finest relief sculptures ever made yet. Another contestant was Filippo Brunelleschi, who quit goldsmithing after the contest and turned fully to architecture. He traveled to Rome to study its many ancient buildings. He measured ruins, studied old methods, and created new tools to do his work. In the 15th century, Florence wanted to build a large dome for its cathedral. Brunelleschi designed a bold, self-supporting double dome. Many doubted him, but he was determined. Brunelleschi trained workers, solved problems, and invented revolving cranes and hoists to move heavy stone. By 1436, the dome stood complete. It was higher and bolder than any dome since ancient Rome. The city celebrated it as a symbol of Florence itself. Painting still grew and changed during this time. Paintings told stories, expressed beliefs, and shared feelings faster and cheaper than sculpture. Artists learned new ideas from an old Roman book by Vitruvius. The book explained how artists could create the illusion of depth on a flat surface by making lines meet at a center point. Filippo Brunelleschi studied this idea. He saw how patterns on the Florence tapestry looked closer together as they went farther away. He painted a small panel to copy this effect, and used a mirror to prove the image matched what people actually saw. This discovery of perspective changed art forever. Masaccio became the first painter to use it fully, using light and anatomy to make his figures look solid and real. In his painting The Trinity from 1425, he painted a ceiling that seemed to sink into the wall. In The Tribute Money, he used shading and careful angles to give bodies depth. Masaccio died young in 1428, but his calm and powerful figures inspired many later artists, including Michelangelo. At the same time, Fra Angelico chose a different path. As a Dominican monk, he treated painting as a form of prayer. He filled the San Marco convent with soft and peaceful frescoes meant to inspire devotion. His figures looked pure and gentle, avoiding strong realism and aiming for spiritual beauty. Fra Angelico's work marked the final high point of medieval Christian faith and art. His calm and simple style closed one chapter of art history, as the Renaissance fully began in earnest. Part 2. The Early Renaissance. If art was to be created, artists usually had to be patronized by wealthy European rulers and nobles. They used art to show power, wealth, and prestige. After the Black Death, wealthy merchants also began to pay for art. These new customers wanted realistic images that showed their influence and shape how others saw them. Outside northern Italy, the richest and most urbanized region of Europe was the Low Countries. The Burgundian state controlled this wealth. Duke Philip III loved art and supported many artists, especially Jan van Eyck. Jan van Eyck joined the Burgundian court in 1425 and earned a high salary. This pay let him and his brother Hubert travel Europe and work freely. He painted people with lifelike detail on the skin, hair, and fabric. He used oil paint, strong light, and rich colors to make his figures look real. His 1434 painting of merchant Giovanni Arnolfini and his wife shows a room full of costly objects, which highlights the pride and success of the growing middle class. Altarpieces became very popular in the 1400s. People loved them because they decorated holy spaces and helped prayer. Van Eyck's Ghent altarpiece, finished in 1432, shows calm scenes when closed and vivid, crowded scenes when opened. Rogier van der Weyden focused on strong emotion. In Descent from the Cross, he shows a painful moment of the Virgin Mary's grief as Jesus is deposed. His workshop made many copies of his paintings to meet demand. The innovations brought on by early Netherlandish painting would go on to greatly influence future Renaissance painting in Italy. In 1440, Johannes Gutenberg invented the movable type printing press. Before this, monks had to copy every book by hand, which took a very long time. Most books used Latin, so only church leaders and nobles could read them. Printing changed this. People translated texts into their own languages and printed many copies fast. What once took a year to copy can now be printed in a single day. Printing spread across Europe very quickly. By 1500, printing presses worked in Italy, France, Spain, England, and many other regions. Printers made millions of books, including religious texts, law books, classics, and popular stories. Learning changed as a result. Students read books on their own, improving reading skills and making languages more uniform. Scholars and writers compared texts, shared findings, and spread Renaissance thinking and many other ideas to millions. In art, meanwhile, Donatello led early Renaissance sculpture. He studied ancient Roman art and trained under Lorenzo Ghiberti. He created statues that showed real bodies, emotion, and movement. His bronze David became the first freestanding nude male statue since antiquity. His statue of Gatta Mileta became the first full-size equestrian statue of the Renaissance. Cosimo de Medici supported Donatello and gave him the freedom to create. Leon Battista Alberti also shaped the Renaissance. He worked as an artist, architect, writer, and mathematician. He studied Roman buildings and focused on balance, math, and space. In his book on painting, he urged artists to show depth and realism. In On the Family, he gave advice on how families should grow and live. Alberti believed functional and uniform design served people best. In May 1453, the Ottoman Turks captured Constantinople. They used huge cannons to break the city walls, which people once thought were impenetrable. The city sat between Europe and Asia, nestled under the Bosphorus Strait in the Sea of Marmara. Traders from the two continents moved silk, spices, and fine cloth through the city. The city's fall scared many people, especially in Italy. Before the Ottomans, the Byzantine Empire ruled Constantinople. Over many years, the empire grew weak, which helped the Ottomans take over. The Byzantines followed Orthodox Christianity, not the Pope in Rome. This difference left them isolated from Catholic Europe. Even so, they desperately sought help. In 1438, the Byzantine emperor and scholars traveled to Florence. Negotiations mixed religious unity, politics, and ceremony. Common Italians noticed their clothes, habits, and foods, such as salads and fried pigeons. Italian scholars cared more about the Greek books they brought, which included works by Plato, Aristotle, Euclid, and Ptolemy. After the empire fell, many Greek scholars fled to Italy with their books. Bessarion settled there, preserved many texts, and later became a Catholic cardinal. Cosimo de Medici admired the scholar Platon, who helped start a Platonic academy in Florence. These actions joined Greek and Latin ideas and helped create the intellectual foundation of the Renaissance. Cosimo de Medici died in 1464. his son Piero took control. Piero was sick with a bad case of gout, and he made enemies out of his supporters, though he managed to stay in power until he died in 1469. Power then passed to Piero's son, Lorenzo. Cosimo had Lorenzo study language, ideas, politics, and war. In 1469, he married Clarice Orsini, linking the Medici to a strong Roman family, though the marriage itself was loveless. Lorenzo ruled without holding an official job. People did not mind because Florence grew rich and stable under him. The family gained wealth through church banking and alum mining for cloth making. Reflecting his energy, generosity, and public spirit, Florence called Lorenzo the Magnificent. Pope Sixtus IV feared a strong northern Italy. In 1478, conspirators attacked Lorenzo and his brother Giuliano during Easter Mass. Giuliano died, but Lorenzo escaped with a minor wound. The assassins faced brutal punishment, but the Pope declared war and sicked his attacked dog, the Kingdom of Naples, onto the Republic. Lorenzo took a bold step and traveled to Naples alone. He appealed to King Ferdinand's similar love for ancient history, and argued that great rulers from Greece and Rome gained lasting glory through peace, not war. Peace was made, and Lorenzo returned to Florence. After Sixtus IV died in 1484, the new pope, Innocent VIII, proved weak and easy to influence. Lorenzo married off his daughter Maddalena to a son of Pope Innocent, allowing Florence to guide papal policy. Lorenzo's son, Giovanni, entered the church at a young age, destined to become Pope Leo X. Lorenzo later fell gravely ill and died in April 1492 at age 43. Lorenzo left Florence beautiful, respected across the peninsula, and culturally brilliant. But his strong personal influence made Florence too dependent on him, and the Republic, though calm and bright, would soon face many dangers. One of the most important artists under Lorenzo's patronage was Sandro Botticelli, with his focus on dreamlike beauty and imagination. Under Medici patronage, Botticelli started to paint stories from ancient mythology. He showed nude figures and pagan gods, which was unusual at the time. His most famous works include Primavera from 1482, The Birth of Venus from the mid-1480s, and Mars and Venus from around the same time. These paintings praise beauty, love, and joy. They also show how artists were embracing humanist ideas by admiring ancient Greek and Roman culture. In 1481, Pope Sixtus IV called Botticelli to Rome to paint frescoes in the Sistine Chapel. These works have less passion than his earlier paintings, as he was not as interested in religion. But after Botticelli returned to Florence, he listened to the sermons of Girolamo Savonarola. Savonarola spoke against luxury and pleasure. He warned people that gambling, rich clothing, makeup, parties, and costly art pulled them away from God. These sermons deeply affected Botticelli. He turned back to faith and changed his art. He illustrated Dante's Divine Comedy and painted many images of the Virgin Mary. His later works kept their gentle feeling, but started to lose some clarity and balance. This change opened up room for newer artists to shine in the spotlight, propelling the Renaissance to new heights. Part 3. The High Renaissance. When King Ferdinand died in 1494, Italy entered a time of trouble. France had an old claim to the Kingdom of Naples, but Naples also claimed Milan in the north. Ludovico Sforza ruled Milan as regent and feared losing power. To protect himself, he invited King Charles VIII of France to invade Italy. In September 1494, the French army crossed the Alps. In Florence, Girolamo Savonarola warned that disaster would come, and that God had sent Charles VIII to punish Italy. Piero de Medici met Charles VIII alone and agreed to harsh demands. The people reacted with anger and drove the Medici family out of the city. After entering Florence, Charles marched on Rome and then Naples. On his return north, however, many Italian states joined together against him. In 1495, they fought France at Fornovo. The French managed to win, but escaped Italy without any of their gains. Back in Florence, Savonarola enforced strict moral rules. He urged fasting and sacrifice. People burned books, art, and luxury items in the bonfire of the vanities. The Pope exiled Savonarola from the church, and the city later arrested and executed him in 1498. However, his words spread across Europe, his ascetic lifestyle garnering much praise in a time when the church seemed more focused on wealth and prestige. Savonarola's death shocked Sandro Botticelli. He no longer wanted to paint easy stories where suffering leads to future reward. In The Tragedy of Lucrezia, he showed a woman who chose death after violence robbed her honor. In The Story of Virginia, he showed a father who killed his own daughter to save her freedom. He showed innocence destroyed by power, much like how the Italian peninsula was consumed by violence, and how Florence now felt empty and broken by the time he died in 1510. After Constantinople fell in 1453, trade between the Muslim East and the Christian West did not stop. The Ottomans preserved Constantinople as a bustling trade hub. Muslims, Greeks, Europeans, Jews, and Armenians lived and worked in the Turkish capital. Ottoman artists made high-quality pottery in Iznik and fine silk in Bursa. European merchants eagerly wanted access to these goods as always. As demand grew, Europeans started to make similar goods at home. Skilled workers in cities like Florence and Marseille made silk cloth, rich fabrics, coral jewelry, and other luxury items. Some merchants started to search for new routes to get rare goods more easily, and to cut out Muslim and Italian middlemen. Portugal led this search. Portuguese sailors looked for direct routes to Africa and India to get gold, spices, and other goods. They reached islands like the Azores, Madeira, and the Canary Islands and grew sugar there. They then sailed along the west coast of Africa, and later around the Cape of Good Hope. In 1497, Vasco da Gama sailed to India and traded directly with them. He returned with the spices, jewels, and silk. In 1500, Pedro Cabral reached Brazil by chance on a voyage to India. Spain also wanted direct trade. King Ferdinand and Queen Isabella backed the Genoese navigator Christopher Columbus, who believed he could reach Asia by sailing west. In 1492, Columbus reached the Caribbean instead. His voyage pushed other nations to explore as well. In 1497, the Italian John Cabot sailed from England and reached Newfoundland. The Age of Discovery had begun. Out of the three great artists of the High Renaissance, Leonardo da Vinci was the oldest, born in 1452. As a child, he loved math, music, nature, and drawing. As a teenager, he trained with the artist Verrocchio in Florence before joining the city's Painters Guild. Leonardo was curious about everything. He studied faces, bodies, animals, plants, water, rocks, weather, and light. He filled many notebooks with drawings and ideas. Because he had so many interests, he often left paintings and concepts unfinished. One unfinished early work, The Adoration of the Magi, already showed a strong understanding of movement, balance, and emotion. In 1483, Leonardo moved to Milan. There, he painted the Virgin of the Rocks, and later, the Last Supper. In the Last Supper, Leonardo grouped the apostles in sets of three, and filled each face and gesture with strong emotion. The painting is one of his greatest works. After France took Milan in 1499, Leonardo returned to Florence. He painted the Mona Lisa around 1503, and later a calm scene with the Virgin Mary, Saint Anne, and baby Jesus. He also competed with Michelangelo and worked as a military engineer under Caesar Borgia, designing defenses and maps. Leonardo studied far more than painting. He explored engineering, anatomy, architecture, and nature. He believed artists should understand how things work inside, not only how they look outside. He valued painting most because it joined math, careful study, and imagination. His art shows strong feeling, clear character, and a soft, misty use of light called smufato that makes figures feel alive. Unlike Leonardo da Vinci, who explored many ideas and often left work unfinished, Michelangelo Buonarroti focused on creating and finishing his art, with a focus on sculpture. He rarely left a project unfinished or an idea unrealized, working hard and investing very little to complete them. He felt that great forms already existed inside stone and walls, and his task was to set them free. Michelangelo was born in Florence in 1475. As a child, he learned under the painter Ghirlandaio, before moving to live with the stonecutter's family. When the Medici lost power in 1494, he went to Rome. There, Michelangelo carved the Pieta. This marble statue shows the Virgin Mary holding the body of Jesus after his death. When Michelangelo was 26, he returned to Florence. In 1504, he carved David from one huge block of marble. In 1505, Pope Julius II called him to Rome again. Efforts to design a cenotaph for Julius II mostly resulted in the statue of Moses. The Pope also told him to paint the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel. Michelangelo painted more than 300 figures, working through pain and exhaustion. The ceiling tells stories from the Bible, mainly from the book of Genesis. It also shows prophets and scenes that point to Christ. In his final years, Michelangelo helped design the dome of St. Peter's Basilica. He kept creating art until he died in 1564, at age 88. Raphael Stanzio was the youngest of the three great artists who shaped the High Renaissance. Born in 1483 in Urbino, His father worked as a painter and poet at the local court, so Raphael grew up around art, books, and high culture. In 1500, Raphael moved to Perugia and studied with the painter Pietro Perugino. Perugino taught him how to plan space, place people in scenes, and create calm and clear pictures. At age 21, Raphael went to Florence to study the work of Leonardo da Vinci and other top artists. He mixed ideas from many places and formed a smooth, gentle style of his own. At the same time Michelangelo was painting the Sistine Chapel, Pope Julius II also invited Raphael to decorate rooms in the Vatican Palace. Raphael created some of his greatest works there. The School of Athens celebrates learning and reason through depicting famous thinkers from ancient Greece and the Islamic world. The Dispute of the Holy Sacrament explores faith and debate. Parnassus honors poetry, philosophy, and culture. Raphael worked quickly and created a large amount of art. He painted frescoes, portraits, and religious scenes. Many people admired his images of Mary and the baby Jesus. Unfortunately, Raphael died in 1520 from pneumonia at a young 37 years old. Even with his short life, his work left a lasting mark on art and the Renaissance. Niccolo Machiavelli worked for the city of Florence. While he worked as a diplomat with Caesar Borgia, a feared warlord backed by his father, the Pope, Machiavelli saw how lies, tricks, and fear helped rulers keep power. When the Medici family returned to power in 1512, they removed Machiavelli from office, tortured him, and forced him into retirement. While living in exile, Machiavelli wrote The Prince. In this book, he told rulers that using betrayal, force, and violence could help them conquer and hold land. He also argued that the state should serve to strengthen itself and stay independent of the church. He cared about power, but he also cared about lasting success and honor. In England, Thomas More lived at the same time. He worked as a lawyer and official for King Henry VIII. In 1516, he wrote Utopia, a story about a made-up island with a fair society. People worked short hours, shared property, lived simply, and gold had no value. More believed a good person should try to reduce harm. This thinking was reflected in the Low Countries, where a movement called the Devotio Moderna encouraged simple living, prayer, humility, and following Jesus. Some of its schools mixed these values with humanist learning. This blend shaped Erasmus, one of its most famous students. Desiderius Erasmus traveled across Europe and wrote many books and letters. He trusted reason more than rituals and superstition, and promoted a way of life based on early Christian morals. In 1516, he printed the first Greek translation of the New Testament. In books like The Praise of Folly, he mocked proud and greedy leaders, scholars, and church figures. He argued that peace, kindness, and goodwill would last longer than war or revenge. Unfortunately, in the coming decades, his words of peace would be ignored outright. While the Renaissance was underway in Italy, the Catholic Church was enjoying its many riches. Many church leaders focused more on money and influence than on faith. Bishops lived like nobles and often ignored their duties. Some held multiple jobs simultaneously or practiced nepotism. Others sold church offices, called simony. Some also sold indulgences, papers that claimed to forgive sins if you paid money. This wealth paid for grand buildings in Rome, including St. Peter's Basilica, and supported artists such as Michelangelo and Raphael. It also funded wars and sinful, debaucherous lives for the popes. Many people called out this luxury, such as John Wycliffe, Jan Hus, and Girolamo Savonarola, as mentioned before. In 1517, a German monk named Martin Luther was the first to start proper change. He said the Bible mattered more than the Pope, and that faith alone brought salvation. Many German rulers supported him. Other reformers, such as Ulrich Zwingli, Philip Melanchthon, and later John Calvin, added new ideas. The Protestant Reformation shook the foundations of the Catholic Church and split Europe in two. Italy also faced constant war. France and Spain fought for control, while the popes tried to protect their lands. French armies first won key battles like at Agnello and Marignano, but forces led by Holy Roman Emperor Charles V later defeated them. In 1525, they captured the French king at Pavia. Later, in May 1527, unpaid Spanish and German soldiers attacked Rome itself. They looted homes, killed civilians, and damaged churches, libraries, and art in horrific sacking of the city. After the chaos, Italy entered a long period of foreign control, and the Renaissance had to look for a new home. Part 4. The Late Renaissance. By the time of the French invasions of Italy, the ideas of the Renaissance were making their first steps across the Alps. Matthias Corvinus, the King of Hungary, was one of the first to import the Renaissance. He invited Italian artists and builders to his capital, Buda. One builder, Ridolfo Fioravanti, constructed bridges in the city. After Corvinus died in 1490, Fioravanti moved east and rebuilt the Dormition Cathedral in Moscow. Elsewhere, in France, King Francis I built many elegant palaces along the Loire River. Emperor Charles V also supported the Renaissance by commissioning many portraits. In Germany, Albrecht Dürer became a key figure in northern art. He first traveled to Italy in 1494, learning that art needed careful planning, math, and clear depth. He studied the human body and how to place people in space. He believed artists should work in a thoughtful and scientific way, like artists from antiquity. Dürer sought to teach its Italian ideas to artists in the north. Much like Dürer, the Dutch painter Peter Bruegel the Elder also traveled to Italy to study its art. Starting in the 1560s, Bruegel focused on everyday scenes from peasant life. He painted peasants eating, dancing, celebrating, and working. People at the time often laughed at country folk, but Bruegel did not mock them out of cruelty. He used village scenes to show human behavior honestly. His two sons, Peter Bruegel the Younger in 1564 and Jan Bruegel the Elder in 1568, later also became artists and continued this tradition into the 17th century. After Rome was attacked in 1527, the heart of the Italian Renaissance moved north to Venice. Venice had grown rich and strong through trade. Artists like Vittorio Carpaccio and Paolo Veronese showed Venice as powerful and stunning. Their paintings glowed with color and felt full of life, reflecting the beauty of their city. One key painter was Giorgione. He painted quiet, calm outdoor scenes and stories from ancient mythology. He used symbols to hint at deeper ideas. He also painted the human body more often, and brought ideas from ancient Greece and Rome into Venetian art. The greatest Venetian painter was Tiziano of Vecellio, more famously known as Titian. He worked with great energy, like Michelangelo, but he focused on painting, not sculpture. Even in his 80s, he painted strong portraits of famous leaders, such as the Doge of Venice, the Duke of Ferrara, and Emperor Charles. He also painted mythological stories filled with bold feeling, and religious scenes that showed deep human emotion. Works like Assumption of the Virgin and Sacred and Profane Love celebrate movement, feeling, and joy. Venetian art spread across northern Italy in the 1500s. Antonio Correggio from Parma played a key role. He used light and shadow, or chiaroscuro, to guide the eye and highlight parts of his paintings. He learned from both Florentine and Venetian styles, especially from Raphael. Together, these artists made Venetian painting a major force of the late Renaissance. Protestant ideas spread fast after Martin Luther started the Reformation. They were strongest in northern Germany, Bohemia, Scandinavia, and England. At this rate, the Catholic Church would lose much of its power if nothing changed. After the sack of Rome, the Pope stepped back from wars and politics and started to act as a neutral, spiritual power. This change gave Pope Paul III time to call the Council of Trent in 1545 to fix problems and answer Protestant challenges. At the Council's early meetings, church leaders rejected the Protestant idea that the Bible had more authority. They upheld sacraments like baptism, communion, and marriage. They also defended beliefs like transubstantiation and purgatory. In later meetings during the 1560s, leaders worked to clean up church behavior. They punished dishonest bishops and stopped the sale of indulgences. The council ended in 1563. After Raphael died in 1520, artists stopped pushing forward and instead reshaped existing ideas into a new style called Mannerism. Artists chose unrealistic imagination over nature. They stretched bodies, twisted poses, and broke balance on purpose. Perspective was disregarded, and space felt cramped and unreal. Michelangelo and Raphael's later works showed this shift. Michelangelo used the twisting, serpentine figure, which felt tense and dramatic. After Raphael's death, his students spread Mannerism, especially in Florence. Jacopo Portormo used strange colors and floating figures. Francesco Parmigiano showed the style clearly in Madonna of the Long Neck. He used tall figures, odd sizes, and unreal space. After 1527, Mannerism spread throughout Europe, gradually replacing the realistic and natural designs of previous Renaissance art. During the Renaissance, scientific thinking still followed the ideas of Aristotle. He believed people could understand nature by watching it and using basic logic. Universities like Padua pushed students to ask questions and test ideas instead of just trusting old authorities. Over time, thinkers learned to rely more on clear evidence and careful thinking to explain how the world works. Renaissance artists used math to show space and depth in paintings, which made math useful in daily life. Merchants, engineers, and sailors started to rely on it. Regiomontanus improved math used for measuring angles and astronomy. Niccolò Tartaglia studied trigonometry and ballistics. Luca Pacioli introduced a double-entry system of bookkeeping to Europe. Artists also studied the human body closely, inspiring doctors like Andreas Vesalius to dissect bodies, find mistakes in old medical ideas, and publish accurate drawings. At the same time, the Church supported the ancient Greek idea that Earth sat at the center of the solar system, or geocentrism. In 1543, Polish astronomer Nicholas Copernicus argued that the sun sat at the center instead, or heliocentrism. Many astronomers doubted him because his idea conflicted with common sense and known science at the time, but they respected his work. Later discoveries supported Copernicus. Tycho Brahe saw a new star, a supernova, in 1572, proving that the heavens could change. In 1609, Johannes Kepler showed that planets move in elliptical orbits around the Sun. Galileo Galilei added new laws of motion and changed humanity's understanding of the planets with his telescope. Humanism's values of critical inquiry and observation encouraged using those habits in experiments, mathematics, and the physical world itself. A scientific revolution was underway. Despite the challenge, the Catholic Church stayed confident during the Protestant Reformation. Reinvigorated by the Council of Trent, it stuck to its core beliefs and spread its faith across the world through missionaries and religious orders such as the Jesuits and Franciscans. After the Council of Trent, church leaders wanted art to impress people and reinforce faith in God. This style is known as Baroque. Baroque art started with buildings. Church leaders said churches should look rich and colorful, with bright colors, statues, gold, and bronze. Gian Lorenzo Bernini designed St. Peter's Square and decorated St. Peter's Basilica. He also made sculptures. His marble statues show strong emotion and movement, as if they were alive. Painters also changed their style. Caravaggio evoked Correggio's chiaroscuro, also using deep shadows and bright light to make scenes feel intense. He painted holy scenes with ordinary people, displaying pain, struggle, and real life. Baroque painters filled churches and walled palaces with huge scenes. As Baroque art spread among Europe's courts, Renaissance and Mannerist styles faded. Their careful study of nature and realism did not disappear, however. They were put to good use in the scientific revolution, and later the Enlightenment, and their advancements would spread as Europe accessed and conquered more and more of the wider world around them.